Hello, explorers. So I've had to resort to recording a video for you today rather than a Facebook Live because my internet would not play ball. And if you'd been following me or watching my lives, I know some of you have been on every single live, and for that I'm very grateful, or most lives. And I've had internet problems off and on, especially in the summer when my children were off school and they were trying to use the internet. The signal would fail, and it was becoming quite problematic. And there became a time, and this is relevant because if you remember, or the topic of this video is support and being fully supported in your life and experiencing total support. And I asked if anyone had any examples of where they weren't being supported. And but I didn't have any. If you do have some, then do share them with me, because when it comes to transformation, it is far easier and far more supportive, pun intended, to look at a specific incident, look at a specific event, rather than talk just in general, just very sort of like at a head level, at an ideas and concept level. We want to bring it down into the practical. And my experience with BT and the internet today is a beautiful example of how I've been supported, and how in the past, or how others as well, may not have been as supported. So I now have a beautiful real time, in the moment, happening on the live example of support that I can share with you. And I didn't really have a nitty gritty one before. So what we're covering today is the practical steps to take to be fully supported, and just looking at obstacles in a whole new light. And we started with this in the live last week. So if you haven't watched that, these ones around support do build on each other. So I recommend you go and you watch last week's live. And I probably said in that one to watch the weeks before as well. So do check those out. And we're also, going to be looking at obstacles. So I want to share with you the practical steps, because I used to think that I just have to share the ideas or the way I think, and then then you can just go away and do it yourselves, which may be true and could be true. But actually, when I look, there were things that I would do over and over and over again, like consistently, that bring me to where I am today, which is dancing in Wonderland. So no matter what life throws at me, I can bend and adapt and flow and delight in the experience, whatever it is. Sometimes there are very sad things, and maybe I wouldn't describe it as delighting in it, but if it's sadness, or for example, I feel very moved by it and very touched. So it touches me deeply. So it isn't, when I talk about Wonderland, it isn't happy clappy, all excited, like dancing in effectively La La Land. It's a place to come from, a place within that feels very grounded, very nurturing, supportive, amazing, really, and very different to how I used to be. And I wanted to, we've been exploring support over the last, I think it's 5 weeks in September, that because it's something that's so dear to my heart, and I wanted to just share my vision of what I see as being support. And it's because just before the live, I spoke to my husband, and he kind of said that it's not something people really think about, that they lack support. It's not up there on their lists of concerns or problems or issues. And it struck me that now it's kind of integral to my whole life, this feeling of support. But a few years ago, it probably wouldn't have been. And I was more concerned with making more money, having a better relationship with my family, not arguing with my kids all the time. Like, just the day-to-day nitty-gritty, and you might be there. And but I wanted to share this big vision I have for being supported, because I see it as being supported by life. Like life's got your back. Life is kind of holding you, like you're sat on this big huge cloud, or this the air. What do they talk about in with birds? They a current or a head with, like you get into this kind of like slipstream, and then you can fly, like the birds can fly without much effort when they're in that right zone, as it were. And that's what I'm talking about by being supported. You're flying in that wind that just carries you along. And it's similar with sailing. You're heading in a certain direction and you're using the wind. Now, even if the wind is coming against you, there's a way to kind of move through it. It's more challenging if it's coming against you, but you can still go in the direction that it's taking. And then when there's this wind behind you, that's like flows you along. And so the idea of being totally supported is that you're totally supported by life, that you just experience life in such a way that you're in awe of what is showing up in your life now. And if things are a struggle for you right now, if things are a challenge, then that might not be kind of very helpful. And it's easy to brush it off. Well, it's all right for you, Melina. You're in a great relationship. You've got children. You live in a lovely house. It's different for me because. But I'm very clear, and I know that where I feel is actually nothing to do with my circumstances. In fact, I have the circumstances I have because of all the work that I've done up until now and shifting my perspective. So it's a different shift in the way I see the world, a different shift in the way I experience the world. So I do feel supported. Now, that doesn't mean that I just have good things happening to me. I deal with challenging situations, not all the time, but I have a particularly challenging situation at the moment with things that are happening with my son. I don't tend to go into it because I want to respect his privacy more than anything. So I'm mindful of that. But it is this and I've shared in both the lives I've done previously, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's so, so key that if we shift our outlook on life, then things will shift, because there isn't, and maybe we'll look at reality. That's a big topic as well. Maybe we'll start to explore reality next month. But the idea being that there isn't a world outside of us that's independent to us. Things occur for us or to us as a result of our own seeing. So it's not independent of us. It isn't like, the way I kind of language it and look at it is, there isn't a world out there and a me in here. The world out there is dependent on the me in here, which means that you can shift your circumstances and your outside reality by shifting the way you look at life. And so looking at the very minutiae, the nitty gritty of what goes on in life is actually key, because when we can see the daily stuff that happens, the daily grind as it were, or the way certain things happen, and we look at them through fresh eyes, then they can start to shift and the outside world will change as a result. And I have experienced this over and over and over again. And I've witnessed it happening with my clients as well, which is just lights me up. It's amazing. So that's kind of like the vision. That's really why I created Wonderland, is so that other people and you could experience this feeling of delight in life and just this being taken along by a beautiful, amazing current, and that you can see, that you experience a wonderland, that extraordinary, amazing vision that you probably have about how things would look for you, but it's not, you don't experience them as a result of getting the circumstances that you think will bring you that joy. You will experience this like freedom and delight and wonderland by shifting the way you look from the inside out. So now the traditional approach to life is to have a vision and make it happen. Like, you create this vision, it's awesome. The more detail that you can put into it, the better. Write it down, share it with people, make it real, create a vision board, and then take action into making it happen. And I read something today about taking small steps, that you can have the big goal. So there's a big goal, but if you break it down into small steps, so it's a big goal that will motivate you, and it's the small steps that will get you there. And I really related to that because I've been exploring goals and how I actually delight in setting smaller goals and looking at smashing them. I shared that post with you earlier. But the traditional approach to life is like creating a vision and making it happen. And I always felt out of place, that I didn't fit, that I didn't belong, because I didn't operate that way. And I made myself wrong for not operating. Well, I didn't actually make myself wrong. That's not entirely true. But I felt that I was out on a limb, that I didn't belong anywhere, that I kept that quiet because, well, everyone else was there. And it's not that it's a bad way to operate. It just didn't light me up or make me happy because, and this was my experience, either I would never get the goal, or I got the goal and it was fleeting. So for example, I've invested a lot in mentors over the years, a lot. And when I was like paying out huge sums of money effectively each month for a mentor, I was able to generate it in my business. I had it coming in. It was I was that success story that took my business, that tripled my income in a year, took it to 6 figures, got testimonials sharing how I've done that, or that me doing that, for testimonials from my mentors at the time. But as soon as I stopped working with them, that income stopped as well. So it's like I could do it for a certain length of time and then it would stop. And so I never fully, despite getting the external success, felt that fulfillment that I craved. And that's what I'm kind of like wanting for you in Wonderland. It's that difference in seeing that actually your internal happiness and fulfillment, it's really fulfillment rather than happiness, because happiness implies happy, whereas actually this journey is about learning to experience all your emotions. So not just happiness. It's everything. It's joy, it's sadness, it's anger, it's frustration, it's delight, it's fun, it's excitement, there's so many emotions, but it's to appreciate all of them and kind of ditch the labels. We tend to label things as good or bad, positive, negative, and actually the human experience is to experience all of our emotions. But that's a whole other topic as well. I've kind of gone off a bit. So my approach to life was not to like create a vision and make it happen. I tried that, it didn't work. It wasn't that it didn't work, it didn't give me the fulfillment that I craved. But seeing life from a different perspective, and I'm going to tell you what that is. I have shared it with you before if you've watched my lives. It's about letting life guide you. So maybe it's working in partnership with life, but it's really kind of not using life, but seeing what life is presenting with you and responding accordingly, to kind of dance with life, to play with life. And the traditional approach, as I see it, is more, it's like set a vision, make it happen, like push through. And it can feel like you're smashing your head against a brick wall the whole time, that you're like just, there's a brick wall and then you try a different tact and you keep smashing up against dead ends. And if that is familiar to you, start to look at it in a different way, take a different approach to it. Because we can look at the dead ends and we tend to kind of like put the blame or the reasons out there. There is always circumstances why we're not achieving what we want. And if only my husband would support me. So this was a classic. The reason I wanted to do support was because a lot of people didn't have they wanted to go for their dreams, but they didn't get the support of their family. So their family didn't buy into their vision. They kind of would get knocked down, ridiculed, put down, like just their nearest and dearest, who you would expect would want the best for them, like didn't. And maybe they acted out in fear, but it was like they wanted to keep you small, or they wanted to keep you small. And so that it left a lot of frustration in that you felt you had to do it alone, or go and find your tribe. So there's a big movement to finding a tribe of people to support you, that share your vision. And I'm starting to appreciate more and more the connection, but I didn't want to be in a group of like-minded people. I wanted to be in a group of people who thought differently to me, who saw the world differently, who shared their ideas, because in that way that I learned more, not through someone agreeing with me or seeing the world differently, but I tended to find that in many groups that I was in, that it was that there was an agreement made that the world was like this, and if you disagreed, then you weren't honoured. It's very difficult because I probably didn't speak out so much, but I didn't want to just be with a group of people that saw the world in the same way. I wanted to sort of experience the richness that all our diverseness has to offer, because there is no one way of seeing the world. There is no one way to achieve success. There is no one way of achieving, of realizing your dreams. And so what I wanted to create, and the vision that sort of like inspires me, is this world where that we feel fulfilled within, that we feel grounded, supported, happy, like the voices in our heads stop. Because when we are experience life like that, then it's going to ripple out. It's going to ripple out into the outside world, and that just like that will have a knock-on effect far and wide, whether we realize it or not. Anyway, so that's what, like, and it's this kind of like idea of support. You can be supported by someone even if they don't even believe in, like, agree with the way you see the world. Like my husband and I would be sharing how I would see the world, and he didn't see it in the same way as me. And I spent years trying to convince him that this is the only way to see it, this is the way to do it. And it was only actually when I stopped and stood back and let him be, to explore for himself, that like things started to shift. And I'm hesitating because I don't really like, as I said before, talking about other people, but it was like I was making him wrong for the way he thought, that my way was the only way. And I think we can experience that a lot, especially when we've had a big transformation ourselves. We want to share it. But we're coming from a place of the world is broken and needs fixing, whereas the world's not broken. It doesn't need fixing. but that doesn't also mean we don't necessarily want to impact it in some way, make it an even better place. But from a place of the world's amazing, let's make it even better, that kind of thing. So anyway, I've got a bit distracted. So I've got distracted and there's no one interacting with me to make me go off point. So but it's about letting life guide you. So seeing what wants to show up in your life and exploring that, because if you're constantly hitting dead ends, then you're the common denominator. Then if we're butting up against something constantly, then the thing to do is to to stop and take note, explore, like dig further. So I just realized I've just gone into the kind of like the nitty gritty. So let me give you an example. Like I will talk about the internet. So, and it's kind of key because I haven't been supported by technology. I've got a dodgy phone, and to be honest, the phone has not worked from the time I got it. Like the hearing or the headset was always a bit funny, so it wouldn't play music in stereo. Now, normal people would have sent it back, but I didn't. I made do. I put up with it. And ever since we've moved here, we've had dodgy internet. And it's been over in an annex. There's like a 20 meter, 15 meter probably distance between where the router was and our house. So we were using electric extenders, DeVolos we call them, to get the internet in our house. So we thought, well, it's our setup rather than BT. So we had people staying over in the annex and they switched the router off. So we had no internet. And it was at that point that I thought, okay, I need to change this. This is not we can't have the internet just being turned off. So it was kind of like out of our control, really. So we decided to bite the bullet, pay to have BT come in and install a new line into the house. We were managing before. We kind of like, for me, it's like we can manage. So I would settle, as it were, and put up with things and manage. And then it became noticeable that this wasn't okay anymore. It wasn't acceptable to do that. So we put the line in the house. Now that, in theory, should have made it all okay, but it wasn't. And today, when I tried to do the live, and it just wouldn't work. And again, it was that point that no, this is not okay. It's not acceptable anymore. And so before recording this, I phoned BT up and I spoke to an engineer, and they have admitted or conceded or can see a fault, and they're sending an engineer out on Wednesday. Now, this is hugely different to when we phoned up before, except when I look at when I phoned BT up, I've always had help. So the last time I phoned them and complained, they actually sent me a device to that would I can't think of the word, but put Wi-Fi in a different part of the house. So you plug one area into the router and then another in the different area of the house to boost the Wi-Fi at different parts. And he told me that would sort it out, but it didn't. So there was an example of where I'm being supported. And then today they're sending an engineer out. Now, my husband's phoned them up many times and just gets knocked back. No, it's not us. There's no fault. There's nothing wrong with it. When they check it, there's nothing wrong with it, and we put up with it. And it's kind of really, is it difficult? It's like there's this shift in, I have an expectation that, and it's more than that, it isn't just about an expectation, but I've done so much work on transforming myself that I am being supported. And in the past, I could have phoned up to get and be knocked back myself. So it's not that there's a difference in who we speak, because it could be that when I phone up, maybe it's because I'm a woman that they listen to me more. Maybe it's because I'm very calm and just ask for what I want. I don't get cross. But the way I look at it is there's an energetic force field, or an energetic force field I've got to use, that you put out, that people pick up on. It's like I'm not going to accept no for an answer, that this needs to shift. And so that's the reason that I have the support that I've got. Now, if I look back at the time, there has been plenty of times when I've not been supported, where I've phoned up, I've been fobbed off, maybe not on this occasion. We certainly had it when we were trying to get support for my son. It was like, no, like not back. And so what I did, and this is kind of key, this is the area that I do look at, is that rather than, like, I could have said, okay, it's our NHS, it's failing us. Like, we hear so many complaints. We hear complaints, and we also hear we also hear how amazing it is. But when I stopped, so the first thing I do when I'm not being supported, or when I'm like hitting my head against a brick wall, and things aren't going my way, I don't put the problem out there. First of all, I stop. So I just stop and breathe. And then, like, I take a look and explore, okay, what's really going on here? What's really going on? Now, I could have gone on and on about Ruddy BT, they can't trust them, they're hopeless, blah, blah, blah. Or I can look at, okay, what's the learning here? And the learning for me in that situation is, I need to stop putting up with things. I need to stop tolerating things that are less than perfect. So I'm not that surprised that I'm having problems with my phone, because I put up with it. I've actually got some walking boots that are leaking water. I think I shared that last week. And so I need to stop putting up with things that aren't perfect and making do, because that's what I've done all my life. Oh, it'll be okay. I didn't want the hassle of taking things back. It's just like, oh, I'll manage. And that isn't working anymore. So it's about, that's the learning for me. Rather than blaming BT, for example, in this instance, or Sports Direct selling me shoddy shoes, or iPhone playing up, whatever it happens to be, it's to look, okay, what have I got to learn? So I always bring everything back to myself, but in a very compassionate, loving way. There isn't like, because you can do this and you can blame yourself for things going wrong. There's no blaming. It's really looking at what life is giving us and responding accordingly. So it's not that we created it, that it's because we've got a negative mindset, or we're not being our best selves, or any of that stuff. No, it's not that at all. It's just that life is kind of like tapping you on the shoulder and saying, you need to do it. You need to look at this. And if you don't look at it, it'll come back to bite you on the bum in a different area. So I've had so many issues on technology, and now it's like, okay, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. Now, I don't know if the engineer will come out on Wednesday and they won't be able to find a fault. Like, this saga could continue. But if that happens, then I'll look at it again. I'll stop. I'll breathe. I'll look at what's underneath. What do I need to learn? Need to learn from this. And I have done this over and over and over in so many areas of my life. And when I'm coaching clients, then we look at this. We look at underlying patterns. We look at things that are playing out, because we can't always see our own stuff. I have blind spots around control, around support still, that I'll look at. But I never, actually that's not true. Sometimes I don't put it out there, or I might catch myself doing that. I mean, this is now so ingrained in like my very being, that it doesn't go out there. But it certainly wasn't always like this. I did plenty of blaming, and probably still do. I can't see my own blind spots. That's why working with a mentor or a coach is always brilliant, because they'll shine a light on what's actually going on. So yeah, that was it really, that whole, and this is, I say, oh, that's pretty much it. It's kind of an ongoing journey. So we see, we can get into very negative mindset, and I have done, like, oh, I'm never going to get there. That was mine. I'm never going to get there. Like, that was kind of like the thing that I would come back to. And then again, I applied this process. So there was this thought that popped into my head: I'm never going to get there. Never going to get to where I want to go. And so I would stop. I actually was blessed in that instance to have a mentor on this particular occasion who said, get where? Where are you going to, where is the there? Like, what, where is there? And in truth, we're like here to experience life and all it has to offer, and learn and grow and adapt and shine, and like all of that through life. And there is no kind of like, well, we got to get there, but I don't want to go off on a different tangent. So so anything in life, the whole idea of whether it's support, whatever shows up where we're not getting what we want, or people aren't supporting us, or we're having like like one of the practical examples that I would see regularly was going shopping and not like wanting to find things, couldn't find it. There's no assistant to help me. The checkout person was really narky, like just having a really bad shopping experience. And then I discovered that actually it depended on my mood when I went shopping. Now, if I was quite grumpy or didn't want to go, then my experience would be not very great. Whereas if I was in a good, happy kind of like mood, then I'd have a great experience. And that was huge, kind of like seeing the difference in not so much that outside world, the shopping experience. It was actually dependent on my own. It's more than mindset, but let's call it mindset, the way I was like. And it's funny because we have a shopping centre, Telford Town Centre, and it's just this big like shopping mall. And every time I go, I get drained, I get grumpy. And I think when I'm there, why didn't I go to Shrewsbury, which is a 20 minutes drive away? Because then it's a much nicer experience. But of course, whenever I go to the town centre, I'm expecting it to be a stressful, draining experience. So that's what I get. And so next time I go, I'm going to explore whether I could have a different experience from that, whether it could be different, whether I've been exploring this, whether it's me or whether it's my environment. I'm still exploring that. So so maybe we can talk about that in a future live or video, whether the idea of whether I can, how much I can shift and change and transform. Like, imagine transforming the whole of Telford Town Centre so that instead of it being draining, because I find the lights quite draining, that actually maybe I could have an uplifting experience. Now that would be cool. That's kind of like, and I guess that's the kind of the way I approach things. It's how much can we shift reality? And how much can we transform? But we kind of have to look at stuff honestly. And when things aren't going our way, or when we're not being supported, to look at, stop, breathe, and explore, what do I need to learn here? What is this trying to teach me? What is there? Sometimes we might not know, but the more, it's like a muscle that we build up. It's not something we just kind of like learn overnight. It could be, but generally it isn't. But we can transform it over and over. So I've spoken loads. I thought this would be like 15-20 minutes. I wasn't expecting it to be 35 minutes. So if you've got to the end and watched all of this, thank you. I hope it's been helpful. And hopefully next week, all the internet will be back up and we will be live again. So I will look forward to connecting and speaking to you next week. Bye bye. Take care.